This is investment tanking with the amazingly generic looking FV201 A45. That's a Centurion hull and a Carnarvon turret. This is as perfect an example of late war British engineering as you get. The result? The opposite of a Super Pershing. British heavy that plays like a British medium. The main difference you'll notice with its Tier 7 counterpart, the Black Prince, is the mobility. Weighing in 5 tons lighter and with an 800 horsepower engine, the A45 can actually achieve its top speed of 31 km an hour, with its power to weight ratio of 14. Traversing is a lot easier too, with a hull traverse of 28 degrees a second and a turret traverse of 36. That's a combined gun traverse of 64 degrees a second, allowing a full rotation of 5.6 seconds. A smaller difference could be the reverse speed, which you rely on a lot to get yourself out of trouble, and also when poking to peekaboo. 16 km an hour doesn't sound much, but the acceleration is pretty good for baiting enemy shots, then pulling back so that they miss. Now, a lot of people are worried about the gun. It is, believe it or not, yet again the famous 17-pounder. By now I'm sure that everyone has it memorised that the 171 AP penetration and 150 average damage can be a little bit frustrating at times. But take this into consideration. The Chinese and Russian guns at this tier tend to be 175 AP penetration with either 217 APCR or 250 heat. If you can make that work, then why not the 17-pounder with its whopping 239 APCR penetration? The only tier 9 you should worry about with that is currently the VK4502B from the front. And if you're attacking the VK from the front, you seriously need to reevaluate your thought processes. Truth is, with this gun you are hardly the best assault tank, so in tier 9 games you should never be alone and always try to force the flow of battle in your favour. You are a perfect support tank with a blistering reload time of 3.7 seconds with equipment, and that's the same as the 1815A tank destroyer, and 0.6 seconds better than the Black Prince. Try staying behind ridges and using your variable gun depression to your advantage. You can depress -8 at the front, -10 at the sides and only -2 at the rear, so if you're cresting a ridge, make the most out of your tank and go diagonally with your gun off to one side. It took me several attempts to figure out why I could sometimes get great shots and others just skim their roof. I'm so clever. The accuracy is a little nondescript, being 0.39 dispersion at 100 meters, and the stats are mysteriously worse than some of the tier 6s with a 17-pounder. Explain to me how you can fit 3 fewer shells in an A45 than a Firefly. How does the A45 have a 0.2 seconds worse aim time than the Firefly at 2.3 seconds? At least the shell velocity is the same at 884 meters a second for AP and high explosive, and 1105 meters a second for APCR. Overall, this means that you shouldn't have any trouble providing support at longer ranges, as your aim time is still faster than the reload, and leading moving targets is easy to calculate regardless of shell type. Also, being tier 7, you can mount vertical stabilisers, which vastly improve the gun handling of the 17-pounder, and given that the A45 is premium, it shouldn't take too long to save for them. When positioned properly, you want a place where you can hit multiple targets and they can't hit you back easily. Same goes for any tank if you come to think of it, but the armour scheme of the A45 forces you to adhere to this rule much more carefully, and if you have 2 brain cells to rub together, the A45 becomes very rewarding. For example, with a sub 4 second reload you can easily keep enemies perma-tracked and eat all their health faster than they can hit you back. This is especially effective on mid or rear turreted tanks where they won't be able to hurt you at all. Fire away! Even if you don't manage to damage the tank you've tracked, keeping it tracked is still great as you'll reap bundles of assisted damage, which, although it won't count for WN8, it will really drive up your credits earned and experience gained. Now, as for the armour, as said before, it has the Centurion 1 hull and the Caernarvon turret. The hull is quite squishy at 76 frontally, 50 on the sides and 38 on the rear. The turret, however, is a different story, having a huge 152mm of semi-sloped armour on the front, 88 on the sides and 88 on the rear. It's not indestructible, but it is a tough little nut to crack. Before you recoil in horror at the hull statistics, bear in mind those angles are from 90 degrees and don't take into account spaced armour. The upper front plate may not stand up to tier 8s and 9s, but when facing tiers 5 to 7 guns, you can pull off a fair few bounces. If you angle well enough, your 76mm front plate can reach almost 200mm effective, though this does put your sides at risk. As for those sides, 50mm may sound disgustingly bad, but it's actually covered by the tracks, which function as spaced armour, and if driven by an effective tanker can absorb a lot of high explosive and heat shots, and reach some ridiculous effective thickness that could stop some stray AP or APCR. Don't rely on them though, I said could stop, not would stop. The face of your turret fluctuates between 150 to 200mm thick, but there is a noticeable weak spot on the turret roof and the cupola. Just be careful when you're poking ridges that you don't expose that for too long, and if you do, try and make sure it's angled. I'm just going to take this moment to point out how strange the enemy artillery is for having a perfect shot opportunity on me on the whole of this game and never once aiming for me. Thanks, buddy. The credit income is okay at best, and for 2k damage you can be expected to get around 50,000 credits before the deductions. The problem here is the resupply. While the ammo is cheap, the module and crew damage is a real damper on spirits and funds, and the repair cost even seems a little unfair sometimes. You can try and solve this by not rushing and getting yourself killed or badly damaged, and by squeezing as much damage out of the enemy team as early on as you can. So, is it a good tank? Well, yes, I really like it, despite the constant threat of ammo rack damage. I think it's just received a bad reputation by being driven by unexperienced tankers who obtained it for free or by rental, leaving it underrated and played badly. As to whether it's worth it, yes. It's better than the Black Prince in my eyes, sacrificing armour for much needed DPM and versatility, finally giving us a usable British heavy premium. Sorry, Tog. Other than that, just spend more gold and keep tanking.
Game over.